Okay, so
Good.
you have to click on that.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. This is Leni Herman from AAA Sewing and Fabric, and this is our last class of the Candy Lane pillow. I love this pillow. I think I'm going to have to make a second one, or third one. I'm on the third one. Oh my goodness. I just had somebody saw it and just said, oh, I wish I could have one. And I thought, okay, Christmas present, here I come. So this we're going to go over making the sashing on the outside of the pillow. And I'm using the Kimberbell border quilting designs, and I think they're absolutely adorable. And I will show you my technique with doing it. Pretty much I think everybody does it the same, so it works really well. You will do one side first, the other side, or you can do the two sashings. I'm going to show you. I have one side done already, and then I'll do one side with everybody. So here's the sashing on the small one, and then this is the sashing on the bigger one. And I always will tell you my mistakes, and I will talk about that in a little bit later so that you don't do that. Or if you do, to me this mistake I made yesterday was a happy mistake, because I actually like it better from what I was doing before. So I'm going to go ahead and change my camera down to the it's on the table. So I left you last time with we finished the last block, and then your homework was to sew all the panels together, which I have done. I noticed I forgot to do my circle, so I'll have to do that, cut my holes in before I put it totally together. And then I put the snow on, and I just kind of want to talk about that a little bit. I did it at home instead of doing it here because I needed a longer ironing board, obviously. And I wanted to talk to you about my mistake the first time and what I did differently this time. So you get that roll in your embellishment kit of your snow, and it's all rolled up. So what I did this time is I took it and I put it at one end of my cutting board, and then I held it with clips, and I put it on the other end, and I left it there for about 3 days to make sure that it was straight. Then when I was ready, I took off the clear plastic that's on top, and then you can see right here I have about 1.5 inches left over on this side, and I have probably 1/2 inch left over on this side. What I did is to place it as pleasingly as I possibly could with the curves going where I wanted it. Some of them aren't where I would really want, but you know, it's not bad. Snow drifts never come in the same place. They never go anywhere. So we want to make sure that you just want to get it on. Then I put a cloth over it and I pressed it down. I'm holding it down here because after we do the embroidery, I'm going to sew right along the edge using my edge stitch foot, and I'm just going to stitch it with the white all the way down, all the way across. And so with that one then will be done, ready to go. I've just clipped it here. It is ironed on, but I just wanted to show you that that's how I put it on. And then I carefully unpin, put a I like waltz cloth to put on top of it, and then I press it really good. You don't want to put your iron on top of the glitter. You want to put a cloth or something on top. OESD has a great press cloth as well. I like it to be a little thinner when I'm doing this so I can make sure that it doesn't move at all. Anyway, so that's that. The other thing that we're going to do then is I'm going to show you how to go about doing this and here. And I wanted to show you what my happy mistake was. I decided to do my border. I thought it was too much to have the white, so I actually did it with the same color, and I kind of like it better. This is totally what you want to do. It has nothing to do, you know, you could do it in red, you could do it any color you want to. I kind of wanted this piece to kind of hide away because it's a separator between the other one. The other piece, and here's where I made my happy mistake, is I was sewing alone last night, and the way that I do it, and I'll kind of go through that with you, is I bring up two different files on my screen. So I actually do it in the 10, you could do it in 8 by 12 hoop, you could do it by the 10.5 by 10.5 or 10 5/8 and 10 5/8 hoop. But I end up, your length of your pillow, yay, hi Fancy Pants, hi Jeannie, hi Gloria, hi Doris. When you've put it in your hoop, and I'm going to show you how I do that, I put either, you can do the two long borders or you can do the two short sashings in here. I ended up this time doing a short sashing and one of the borders so that I could show you how they go together. And then you have to do it again. So you'll do it twice. There's 4 hoopings in one. You could do less, but here's my reasoning on it. My pillow is about 36 inches, 37, 36, depending upon your 1/4 inch seams and what's going on with your blocks and how you cut them and all of that. So about 36 inches. When you pull up, and I use the 1 inch by 10 inch border for this sashing, and then I use the 4 inch by 10 inch one for this. So when you do it, you're going to do it 4 times. Okay, 4 times 10 is actually 40 inches, but it's not really. When you put in your 10 inch file, it really is 9.75. So the 9.75, if you do it 4 times, gives you a perfect finished edge. And I'll show you that. I don't know if I can, but we'll show you. I leave about a 1/2 inch from the top when I start it, and I'm just going to pull this all the way across, and you can see, if I put it in the camera, you can see that it's actually going to be perfect, that 40 inches. Oops, if I can get it back into the camera. So that is, it's perfect. So doing 4 10 inches, you don't have extra. It's actually, it fits perfectly. You could do 2 12s and add a 10 and an 8 or whatever, but I prefer just doing 4 times, I'm done. So, and then with this one, it's the same thing because it's still the same 10 inches. But I don't know if you can see the difference. This one I did white, and then I did white here. Because I put the 2 files together, and then I'll show you on the machine how you can make it so that you sew all the placement lines, all the tack downs, all the, an extra one to tell for another placement, and then it does the quilting. Well, it'll bunch them together. So when I was doing this, the first one I was really good. I watched it and I stopped it and I did the white, and then I thought, oh darn, I can change the color on my machine so that I can stop it so that I can get it ready to go. So when I walked away for a second, I was actually watching Salima last night with her class, and someone needed help, so I just left and went, oh no, the same blue is in here. But then I ended up taking it and I actually changed the color each time and pulled all the colors into my border, in the bigger border with the different colors, and I actually really like it better than all of the white. So it's totally up to you. I will show you how to do both so that you can do it, and we'll get the borders done. So to get started, what you're going to need is one piece of 1.5 inches by the width of the fusible fleece. So that's what my bolt looks like. And then here is a 4.5 inch, and you really could cut it 4 inches. I was a little overzealous with mine because I was a little bit concerned, but four would be fine, and just cut the width of that. The other thing that you're going to need is your finished products, which I have my handy dandy book, and I have my 1 strip sewn together, and then I have my smaller strip. And when I take these pieces out, my book is empty. It's all done. So it's all ready for next pillow, which is going to be 2 scoops. And it is really, really cute. So I will take out all of my labels, and I literally keep these, all my pillow instructions in one book once I finish them. And this will be ready for number 2. So, so I've got my 2 pieces of my fabric, and I've got my 2 pieces of my batting. And now all we need to do is go over to the sewing machine. So the embroidery machine. And here we go. So I've taken poly mesh and put it in my machine. And I just used, again, this is the 10 5/8 by 10 5/8 hoop. And I have pulled up, and I'm going to go ahead and do this for you here, but I'm going to go ahead and start fresh because I want you to see exactly how I do this. So I'm going to go to embroidery. I'm going to go into my USB stick, and I'm going to go to Candy Lane Bench Pillow, and in here I have the files. It's not the quilting files, it's the border files. And I'm going to go to embroidery. I'm going to go to block by block. They have these new clear blue tiles that are out there, and if you have them and you don't have our cameras and the Brother or the Luminaire or all the machines that have the cameras, the tiles are great. But because we have our cameras and stuff, we don't really need it. So we're going to go to block by block, and then I'm going to go to the Pez. And the hardest part for me is to say, but here it is. I want the 1 by 10. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the 1 inch by 10 inch border, and I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to hit set. And then what I want to do is go to edit. I want to move it, and I'm just going to move it over. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to set my machine on the 10 5/8 by 10 5/8 so that I can make sure that it's going to fit in here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit add. I'm going to go back to my pocket. I'm going to go into my USB stick. I'm going to go into my Candy Lane. I'm going to go back into that border, go back to embroidery files, block by block, and Pez. And I'm going to go down to the 4 by 10. I think it's, no, did I use the 3? I think, no, I used the 4. So I'm going to go 4 by 10. Okay, and click set. Now that's on top of each other, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move it over, and whoops, I got to go back here. So I'm going to hit edit, and I'm going to hit move, and I'm going to move it to the right, and then I think I'll click on this one. I'm going to move that to the left a little bit, so I give myself some room. But that's it. That's all I need to do. I'm going to click OK, and now I'm ready to go. But because we have these wonderful machines, I can hit embroidery, okay, and you notice here it's got a placement line. It goes down to the tack down for the batting, and there's another placement line, and then there's a tack down for the fabric, and then there's your quilting. So what I like to do is go into layout, and I'm going to hit this 3 spools there, and what it'll do all my placements, all my tack downs, all of my quilting, and all of that. So if you're going to do all one color, this works great. But I'm going to go in, because I am not going to do it because of my little mistake that I made. I'm actually going to hit return. I'm going to go into edit, and before I do that, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to click on the spool of thread. And as I go down, I'm going to go down to my very last one. Right now, it's set to do the same color. And because I'm changing the color, I want the machine to stop. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm just going to change it to a pink. And that way, the machine knows that it has to do one more stop. So when I click on this, and I click OK, and then I hit embroidery, and then I hit layout, and then I click on here, it's going to now put the 2 together on each one of these. And you notice down here, there's my pink that's going to be in my embroidery, and there's the teal green, which is going to be right here. That way it'll stop for me and I don't have to watch it. So if I should walk away and have to go potty, it's not going to stitch the whole thing like it did on me for the other one. But it was a happy mistake this time. So now I've put water-soluble thread in. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over here. Okay, and now I'm going to let it stitch out. And what it's going to stitch out for me is the placement line for my batting. So here I go. I hope I did this right. Okay, I'm going to stop it because I lied. I made it 4, it needs to be 3, and I hesitated before. So let me go ahead and quickly change this. And I'm going to go back in, I'm going to go home, and it is a 3 by 10. So let me get it. And it's the 1 by 10. So once again, there it is on the screen. Okay, and I'm going to hit embroidery. I am going to go into layout, and I'm going to stitch this, and I'm going to put it so that it goes in one color, and then I'm going to restitch this out. So I apologize for that. I did. Something told me I was not doing the right thing, and I am using wash away thread, yes. And I use wash away thread until I do the quilting. So now it's going to go over and stitch the other placement line for the other one. So again, it's 1 by 10 and 3 by 10. So this is a placement line for your batting. So now what I'm going to do is place my batting down, and I can put it as close to that line as possible. And you could tape it if you want to. I just kind of hold it in place the first time it goes around. It will go around twice on the batting. Now it's going to move over, so I want to get my other batting ready to go. And there it goes. And I just kind of center it over it. Again, I cut mine way too big, but I was using this for something else that was 4 inches. So you usually cut it about 1/2 inch bigger than what you need. It's going to go around another time. Okay, so now I'm going to take it off the machine. Switch cameras. And what you do is you're going to actually cut your batting away. And it's kind of like, why am I doing this? Because you're going to be making a strip. Why do I use wash away thread? If when I sew it together, if it's a little bit out of kilter or whatever, it could show. And I don't have to worry about it because I could take a little toothbrush and just wet it or put a wet paper towel on top of it and it disappears. So, and I only put it wash away in the top and not in the bobbin. And that way if something does show, you don't see it. Otherwise you have to use a seam ripper. And we all have seam rippers, yes, but if I can avoid that, I would love to. So I'm cutting as close as I possibly can to the edge. Okay, so that's ready. Now I'm going to put it back in and it's going to do a placement line for the fabric, okay? So you can see that's all nice and close. And I'm going to switch to camera. So now go ahead and let it stitch. Oh, I've got a bobbin thread. Forgot to check that. Okay, I'm just going to start. Normally I would take it backwards, but again, it's just a placement line. Okay, so now that it has done that, I'm going to... Now it's the tack down on the fabric. And here's one of the main reasons I use water soluble is if I don't hold this down correctly or it's a little bit off, the water soluble will be, I can get rid of it very easy. So I'm going to, you could tape this down if you want to. I'm just going to hold it in place. It's just going to sew the vertical lines. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down. And because I'm right here and I won't go anywhere else, I'll be able to stop it before it goes to the next one. It moves over. Okay, so now it's going to move over. I'm going to go ahead and hit the stop button so that I can put the next fabric in. Now, this one right here, I have pressed my seams open because I want them as flat as they possibly can be. So a lot of people go to the right or to the left. Because I'm doing quilting over these, I want to make sure it's as flat as possible. So I'm going to take this up to about 1/2 inch or to above the edge, and that could be in my seam. Again, decides on what size your pillow is how much you'll be cutting off on it. So you can see I've straightened this out as much as I can, and I'm going to go ahead and start it, and I just want to hold it so that it stays right at the edge of where that line is, of the placement line. That placement line is extremely important. And then I'll come over to the other side. Just don't want to get your fingers in the middle of it, but you kind of want to keep it because it's batting inside there. And so now it's ready to do the quilting. So I'm going to go ahead and change my thread. And this is going to be the green. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out. And it's going to stop now to my next one. So it's stitching that away, and then because I changed that color to a different color, it's going to stop. So it's ready for me to change. So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch this quilting out. So I use this technique on all sorts of borders on things. I love Kimberbell's borders. They're pretty. I love that they stitch out with the batting behind it. So if you're working on something else, It just makes it so easy to do borders. So again, you could do these two together, and then you could do these two together. That's up to you. I still would need to use the layout button to make sure that they would stitch, so that I do all the placements, all the tack downs together. It's probably when you don't want to walk away from too much. Be fairly close to it, because it literally, sewing time on this is 7 minutes. So it goes pretty darn quick. Okay. I'm done with the first one. I've got 3 more to go. So what I'm going to do is put my water-soluble thread back in for the next grouping. Okay, click OK. I don't have to touch my machine to do anything except for changing the thread. I'm going to go ahead and take the hoop out and take my scissors over and change my camera. Okay, and I'm going to move this so I don't accidentally cut the pillow.
Wouldn't be a good thing.
I'd have to make a 4th one, and I don't want to do that. I don't have time.
Or you can just give me the one that you cut through.
I'll fix it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and re-hoop my poly mesh stabilizer. So it's ready to go again. And put that back on the machine. And I'm going to go ahead and push the button to let it do the placement line while I cut this, just so that you can see. Could you use a rotary cutter? Yeah, but I choose not to because I want to get this batting, hopefully you can see here, or the stabilizer. I want to cut it away as close as I possibly can to the edge. So you don't want the bulk in the edge while you're sewing, so that's kind of, take a pin out, pull this away. So then I'm going to go this way. And the most important part here is to get this as close to that quilting as the batting in there as possible, because when you put the next grouping together, you don't want that bulk in there at all. Okay, so I'm going to turn it. Whoops. Something just fell on my foot. Okay, so I'm going to do it again. Now, I can stop here for a minute because we want to save time, so I'm going to move you back over to here. I've done the placement for the batting, so now I'm going to go ahead and stitch this down, because while it's stitching out again, I can be cutting. So I let it go around once. So it's going to go around twice. So I'm going to try and double duty this. We'll see how this works. I multitask. Okay. It's coming close. So we're going to switch cameras. Now it's going to move over, so I want to stop it. Didn't get the switch. Okay, so I stopped it, and once again I'm going to put the batting down, and I'm going to let it stitch it out. So it's going to tack this one down too. As long as I let it go around once, knock on wood, I'm knocking on my head, it's pretty safe. And it depends on what batting you're going to be using. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here. Because what I'm trying to do is get this ready so when I need to place this down, so you can see I'm kind of just pulling on it using the blade of my sewing, or my scissors. So, and again, whatever's easiest for you to do. So once again, okay, so I'm going to, the machine has stopped. So here I am. Again, I'm going to cut this as close as I possibly can, and I'm out of the camera range for just a minute. Get this cut. So again, I'm cutting as close as I possibly can. And you see those strips, I just keep using them, which is really kind of cool. And you just pull this again as tight as you possibly. It'd be interesting to try the border hoop, Doris. I'm a little concerned if it holds it as tight as you need for this, because doing two at once, there's kind of a little more pull to it. And I thought of doing, three at once, because you could fit three in here if you wanted to. But you still got to do it four times. So it really makes it simpler on yourself to do two at once and then do two more at once. Okay, so now I've got this cut. So once again, I'm going to take it back to the machine, and it's going to do the placement line for the fabric. So again, I try and multitask. And so I'm going to go ahead and let that stitch out. So you can watch me finish the cutting here. And I'm using this sharp, these are Kai scissors. And you can see I've cut it very, very close. What you really want close is the edge here that is going to be where you're going to butt the next piece to it. So you want to make sure that that is cut very, very close. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this one. And you are cutting off part of the placement line, which is fine because that's the edge of your fabric. You just don't want that in your bulk of your seam as much as possible. Okay. So you can see here, I've cut pretty darn close to there. There's not too much right there. So now the machine is ready for me to go put these pieces on. So I'm going to go ahead and move it back to the machine. So I have this piece, you can see right here there is a stitch on both of these sides. So what I want to do is make sure that this side needle goes in right at the edge of this. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and lay this down, and we have the beautiful needle down there, so I can literally take my needle and put it down, and I'm off just a smidgen, so my needle goes back up, and I'm going to go ahead and try again, and that's perfect. So now I can make sure that it stays straight. I can feel where the two pieces, these two pieces right here, are butting up against each other. I don't have one on top of the other, anything like that. I've got them right next to each other. So I'm going to go ahead, and with the needle down, I'm going to put my foot down, and I'm going to go hit the go button. And so it's going to, it might have to break a thread. Which is fine. That actually put it where I wanted it to be. So I'm going to go back and bring it back to the beginning again. It's not moved. I'm going to go ahead and hit the start button. And once again, I want to make sure that it stays within that placement line. And now it's going to go over to the other side. And it's going to stitch it, and I just want to make sure that it lies flat and it doesn't move. And I'm going to be right here to push the button to stop it and let it go over. Okay, so the same with this one. I'm going to take it so that I can feel those two edges back up to each other. And once again, the stitch is right here, and I want to match it up with that edge. And I'm going to go ahead and put my needle down, and got it right on the money. So I am ready to go. So once again, I'm going to flatten this out, and I want to make sure that both sides, that they're just butting up against each other. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit the go. There it is. Hold it tight enough, but it's still going to be okay. Okay, so now it's going to go over. I'm going to change my thread to the turquoisey blue, and it's going to do the quilting. Water soluble is waiting for later. And so now we're going to stitch this out. Hi, Pat. You could, Doris, if you wanted to. I like to, just because you have to be so precise, I like to have the needle down in that one little stitch. So, yes, absolutely you could use that light, but not everybody has it. And you could do both if you wanted to. So once again, this goes pretty darn quickly to get your borders done. And I couldn't sew them as nicely as they're doing them myself. I have not mastered free motion embroidery yet. Okay, because I put the stop in there, it's going to go over. I'm going to go ahead and change my thread. And this time I'm going to put red on it. Oh, I'm glad I did the red. And taping is a good idea. I just want to make sure that I feel like I have more control when I do it, but because the tape with this, because there's so much bulk in there, because you've got the batting, you've got your fabric and everything. But yes, to save your fingers, taping is a good idea. Oh, that would be fun. 2 threads, one at a time. Twin needle? I don't think so, unless you're going to be doing your own. I don't think this would work out with the twin. What size is your hoop, Doris? Okay, another one bites the dust. So we got 2 done. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to go ahead and change my thread back to my water soluble. We're halfway done. Okay, machine is ready. I'm going back over here. Okay, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to put my new batting in, or my poly mesh in. What do I do with that? It should, but I know that the border hoops are not as wide. They don't take the designs as wide as a regular hoop does. Okay, so I'm ready for the next one. I'm going to go ahead and let it stitch out the placement line and go ahead back to this and cut my pieces out. Yeah, that works usually if the design is in the field. Get this in the camera. Doris, try bringing the design in again with the hoop on the machine and see if that does it. Okay, I got pretty far. So now my machine is ready for my batting again. So I'm going to go ahead and switch you over. Put this piece in. Go ahead and let it stitch. You probably could use the 6x10 magnetic hoop. That might work. Okay, so it's going to move over. I'm going to go ahead and stop it when it moves. Put my batting in for the second one. So I'm cutting again. It's almost like it's a race. See if I can get this done before the next step. So the next thing it's going to do is the placement line for the fabric. But before I do that, I have to cut away my batting. So here I am. And I love my curvy scissors for that. Okay. Cut away. Cut away again. And one more time here. Again, the ends are the most important part for you to get as close as you possibly can to the batting, because that's what's batting up against the previous one. The sides are important, but not as important. You can always trim the sides kind of after the fact, but you can see here how ragged I am. I definitely want to make sure that that's straight and as close as I possibly can to it. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the machine, and now it's going to stitch the placement for the fabric. And I just have one more to go here. Okay, so you can see I've got it all set here, and this is ready to go for my next placement. Okay, so once again, I'm going to go ahead now. Doris was talking about this green light, and I don't know if you can see it here. It comes up, so you can kind of match it that way. But I really, truly, I don't know if you can see the green. I like to put the needle down. And it looks like that's pretty close. I want to make sure that it's flat, that my batting is next to each other. And then I'm going to go ahead once again. Make sure it's straight. And I'm going to stop it as it moves over. And I'm going to put this, once again, I'm matching the white, the thread I had before. I'm making sure that those two battings are batting up against next to each other. And I'm going to go ahead, put my needle down. Looks pretty darn good. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out. Okay, so now it's ready to do the next quilting. So I'm going to go ahead and change my thread back to the turquoisey green, or blue. Move my white water-soluble thread. I only got one more to go. Now this one I'm actually going to leave the turquoise in or the blue in for both. So I just will have to hit start when I do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and let it stitch it out. Yeah, I two fancy pants. I had white on the original one, and I actually like the matching color better. Just because I feel like it takes away from the pillow. You look straight at the white quilting. So I'm happy that I chose this for this one. And I kind of like the variegated different thread colors on the squares or the rectangles. And it all counts whether you want it to show up or want it to just be quilting behind it. So you see a touch of it. There's times when I like the quilting to show more, and there's times when I like it just be in the background. So this I'm going to leave the same color in, so I'm going to go ahead and just let it stitch out. Somehow with the different colors in the border, it actually brings out the colors in the designs, and you can see it better. I didn't know the white I didn't care for when I finished it, but I kind of let it be, and that was it. This was a happy mistake. Okay, another one. We got one more to go. So, once again, I'm going to change my thread back to my water soluble. Of course, you can't thread the needle unless you tell it you're not done. Okay, so the machine is ready. Now I'm going to change it back to over here. Pull it out again. And my last piece of stabilizer. Okay, so once again, I'm going to let the machine stitch out the placement line for the batting while I sit and cut. And could you use a rotary cutter? Absolutely, if you wanted to. I just like to get the batting away from it as much as I possibly can. Okay, so the machine is ready for me to put my last piece of batting down. So we'll turn it back. put my last piece of batting down again. Okay, it's time to cut my batting. Change my camera. Which this is all I have left, which is pretty darn good. This is all I have left on the strip. So it really, one strip will work for the whole one side. And yes, you probably could cut it like 6 inches and put them closer together. I like to have more of a space between them just in case something gets caught or something like that. Again, making sure your ends are as close as you possibly can, because that's where you want them to butt up against each other. Okay, moving it back to the machine so we can do the placement line for the fabric. Okay, last time. So I'm going to make sure that they butt up against each other again, making sure that that one side, that the needle is in the right place. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch it all the way down. Oops. As this gets longer, you want to make sure that the back doesn't get underneath too, so that you're just sewing on this part as opposed to sewing on your finished strip. And you can see I'm kind of pushing it, and then I'm going to go ahead and stop it after it moves over. And here's where, once again, I'm going to put the needle down once I see that I've got it where I want it to be. And then let it go ahead and stitch. And I still make sure that those seams are flat underneath there. I really press them down. Okay, so my last changing of the thread for the green. Okay, now change to the last color. I think the coral is one of my favorite colors. Okay, this is done. So I'm going to go ahead and take my thread out, and I'm going to put white thread in for the rest of making the pillow, and I'll explain to you why in a minute. And I'm done. Now, if you were only doing one side and you had to leave and go back and do it again, I would definitely go ahead and save the design that's on your screen to your machine, and that way you can just bring it up so it's right in the same place and all of that if you had to leave. The other thing that when you do and you bring it back up again, make sure that you go into that layout and hit this one here. Make sure that it's blue so that it does them in that order. If it doesn't, it will stitch out this one first, where it'll do the placement, the tack down, the placement, and then the embroidery. But I prefer to have them so that it kind of saves time, where it does the placement on both, it does the tack down on both, it does the placement again on both, it does the tack down, and then it does the quilting. So they're totally up to you, but I love that layout button that I can click on that and have it sorted so that I can literally do them at the same time. It just saves a little bit of time with it. So that being said, I'm going to take this off. And let's talk about the back a little bit. And I am ready so that I can just finish cutting this so that it's ready to put onto the side. My hoop is finished. So let's talk about, I'm going to go ahead and change my machine to sewing. And I'm going to go ahead, and my favorite is 4. And I will have to change, as I'm still here, let me change my foot to a regular sewing foot. Okay. And once again, I wanted to show you on this. You have to be careful when you're putting this strip on that you don't stretch it, okay? And let me show you my first one, because I got overzealous and was trying to desperately try to make it fit, and I tore it right here. And it does tear very easily. So you want to make sure, so what I ended up doing this time with it is I literally wonder clipped it down. So I got it exactly where I wanted it to be. Then I took a few of the pieces out, and I think I went over this, and pulled my clips off, pressed it, moved down, pressed it, and did that. So now this piece is ready, and I highly recommend the next step, and I'll do it with you, is to sew this down. And you just sew it within the edge right here. And I totally forgot my edge stitch foot, so I'm going to use a clear plastic foot, which may be better for you guys because you can literally see it. So let me change the camera again. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and change the regular foot to the clear foot, so you can kind of see where I'm going. Now, what I like with this, with your machine, is you've got the red line on your foot, and you have the 1-101, or most machines do, where you can move your needle over so that whatever guide you have, if I had the edge stitch foot, I would have that going along the edge. Right now, all I have is a little red mark. So I'm going to go ahead and put, again, I like to put my needle down first. I've got it set for straight stitch. And I'm just going to carefully, slowly, and I think that's a little too far away from my taste. So my needle's coming back up. I'm going to take it up, and I'm just going to move it. So the red mark is there, but I'm going to also take and move my needle shift just a little bit to the right. And I like that so much better. Yeah, it's perfect. So now I'm just going to stitch along very carefully. I'm just going to follow the curve, and don't get my wonder clips caught. And I just follow the curve. And I have the machine set so that the needle stops with the needle down, so that I can continue to keep it in place as I'm sewing. And I kind of sew, depends on my mood for the day and how I'm doing. I kind of try and sew a little bit slow. And oops, I've got you on the screen. Now, hopefully you can see me. And you just want to kind of sew on the edge. And I've got my wonder clip in the way. I've made sure that my seams in my between the houses are flat, so that I can make sure that it stays flat. So this is one way to keep them so they're down. The other side will be caught in the seam. So this is just to make sure that it doesn't come up. Could you use a decorative stitch on here? Absolutely, if you wanted to. It could be fun to use something a little bit different. But right now I'm just going to use the straight stitch. Okay, I'm just going to get that out of the way because it's a little tight there. Okay, we're done. Now I'll take it over to the other camera. So you can see I just went nice and neatly all around that outside edge so you can see it. So the next thing we want to do is sew our borders on. And once again, I'm going to make it so that the 1/4 inch of it is in the seam. So first thing I want to do is cut this edge off. So I'm going to go ahead over here, cut straight across, and on this side, cut straight across, there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to start it about 1/4 inch away. And that's okay because it's in the seam. Okay. And the last one, you could have done it 12 inches, but I found that the 10 is just fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly do this. You're right, Doris. Okay, I need it a little bit tighter here, just okay. So now I'm just going to use my 1/4 inch foot and I'm going to sew all the way down on that. So I'm going to take it back to the machine. And my 1/4 inch foot. Again, I'm going to leave it 1/4 inch there. I always put my needle down first, then my foot, and then I'm just going to go ahead and sew my 1/4 inch. And you can see my placement lines that I had are well within the edge. But if they're not, because you've used the water-soluble thread, it'll come right out, which is really kind of cool. Now, I could have sewn my borders together, which I'm going to do on the other side first. But on this one, because of that white snow, I like to have more control of it. So I went ahead and sewing this border on here. Okay, change cameras. Yes, it is, Doris. Okay, so you can see there's my border, my sashing, already on. And now all I need to do is sew this one onto that one. Now I would take this to the iron and press. Because we're here, I'm going to go ahead and just do it without with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my wonder clips. What would we do without those wonder clips? Again, 1/4 inch from the edge, which gives me a little bit more, and I'm just going to clip. And I like to clip it. Get my clips over here. I forgot to bring my magnetic bowl. Yeah, that 1/4 inch foot I believe is the one that you came with your machine. The older ones, the 1/4 inch foot is a little more narrow and it doesn't cover the feed dogs. So the one that I think comes with the Solarises and the Lumineers is now the wider one. They discovered it and said, oh, this works much, much better. So my design ends right here. I still have about 1/4 inch, so it works out perfectly on the end. So my design ends right here, and I still have my 1/4 inch, which is perfect with the edge of my pillow. So doing that 4 10s, it works perfectly. So I just like to give it a little more. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew these together. Switch machine, cameras. Now, here's my difference here. I'm going to make sure, and I don't think I did it, but it still worked out okay. Needle up. I want to bring my needle back to where it belongs, and if I use 1-04, it now is where it belongs in the center. So I'm going to go ahead, put my needle down, that, and away I go. Okay, I'm going to go over and change cameras. And you can see there's my one side. And I love the idea of the different colors. I think that really came out pretty. So now I would sew the other side, doing the same thing and all of that. So what I want to go over with you for the rest of this, though, is the back. And I do something a little bit differently with the back. Is you have a half a yard, and I did this before I came so that it would be quicker. You have a half a yard of fabric, okay? So what I did is I cut 10 inches off. So I have two pieces. So I just took the piece, I cut 10 inches off, and here I have 10 inches. I then did a 1/4 inch seam. I folded it in once, folded it again, and I sewed across. Then what I did is I took and used the a scrap of fabric that I had, about a 3-inch piece. And it's a 3-inch by roughly, I want to say, 5 inches. You could go 6 if you wanted to, but 5 inches just works fine for me. So then I took my 3-inch piece by 5 inches, I folded it in half, I sewed around, leaving an opening. You can leave the opening anywhere you want to. And then I turned it inside out, and then about a 1/2 inch away from the edge, I sewed the pocket, and this is for the lights. So you're going to put your light battery in here. So, and I did that. The only thing that you've got to be careful is that you have a right and a left on it. So, and I sewed the pocket on the inside. I prefer that because I know it's right there. I've got it. So when you do that and you've got your edge, then the piece that's left over, I went ahead and finished that with a 1/4 inch seam, again 1/4, and then sewed it. So when it's done, these pieces are going to overlap, and I like to keep the outside one, the bigger one, so that my pocket is kind of hidden on both sides. And again, you want to make sure that when you do it, that your little pockets are down on the bottom of your pillow. Okay, I don't know if you can get this to show, like so. So I've got the pockets in here. I have this all set. Once I have both pieces sewn on, okay, on both sides, then all I need to do is measure how wide it is on how wide this is. Obviously it's not going to be 18 inches. It'll probably be about 16 when I sew the other one on. I'll probably take off about 1 inch off this piece on both sides, and then all I do is I'll put down these two pieces first. No, I take that back. I'm going to put this piece down first, and then I'm going to put this down on top of it. Okay, and then you're going to sew all the way around your pillow. And once you've done that, you have an opening to put your big pillow in. This one I actually did it so that I could show you. Some people like the pocket on the outside. I prefer it on the inside, so I did the other one on the inside where you can't see it. Your battery pack is in there, and it's ready to go. So you can see my inside is here. I prefer having this on the other side. I did this so that you guys could see it, but I prefer to have it so you put this down first and then the other two. So you got it. And then you just sew all the way around. Once you're done, because it's got the two openings on each side, it's very easy to string your lights in and put them in. And all you do is you're going to put them starting at the end with the battery pack. Then I put the battery pack where it belongs, and then I slowly just put them in, bring it through, twist it, put it down, twist it, put it down. And I do that all the way through as far as the battery pack will go, stopping on half the tree. I do the other half going the other way, And again, I have 2 places to put those battery packs and light my pillow up, and away I go. So that's as easy as it is. I wanted to make sure that you knew how to do the borders. And then again with the back, how you do the 3 pieces, and making sure that when you put this pocket on, that you put it so that it's reversed, so that you've got one on one side and one on the other, that you don't have them going like this way where the pocket is up. So you got to make sure that when you do it, that you put all the pockets where they belong on the inside. And that's it. It's so easy. I don't want to know if I should take up more of your time. I can finish it, but I have to cut away. But that's all there is. And it is so darn cute. It is so much fun. And I love that. I actually really do like this better with the turquoise and then the different colors down here. So I still have to cut away on this, which I can do, and then sew the other border on. So we are almost at, I think, an hour and a half of time, and so I'm thinking that maybe it's best that I let you go. And if you have any questions, you can call the store or email. And it's so easy to do once you get the borders done. So I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and I will see you in the new year with something brand new. See you then.